What if I told you that one of the most audacious acts of sabotage in history was carried out not with a bang, but with a silent, invisible attack? It didn't involve spies or soldiers in the traditional sense, but instead, it unleashed an army of tiny, living organisms. This isn't a sci-fi plot. It's the incredible true story of Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a chilling, and thankfully failed, plan from the final days of World War II. It was a plot so sinister it could have changed the course of history and brought unimaginable devastation to the American West Coast. So grab your seats, because this story is a wild ride. The year is 1945. The war in Europe is over, but the conflict in the Pacific rages on. Japan, facing imminent defeat, grew increasingly desperate. Their military leaders began exploring unconventional, and frankly, terrifying, methods to strike back at the United States mainland. This is where a brilliant but ruthless man named Shishi enters the picture. Shishi was the director of Unit 731, a notorious covert biological and chemical warfare research unit of the Imperial Japanese Army. What happened? Within the walls of Unit 731 is the stuff of nightmares, a dark chapter of history involving horrific experiments. Ishii and his team had spent years weaponizing some of the deadliest pathogens known to man: bubonic plague, cholera, anthrax, typhoid, and more. They had a deadly arsenal and were looking for a delivery system. Their initial attempts to attack the U.S. were almost bizarre. They launched thousands of Fugo balloon bombs, hydrogen balloons carrying explosives, designed to drift across the Pacific on the jet stream and land in North America. While a few did reach their target and caused some minor damage and tragic, isolated casualties, they were largely ineffective. It was a bit like throwing a message in a bottle, but with a bomb attached. It wasn't the decisive blow Japan was looking for. They needed something bigger, something more terrifying. And Shishi had a plan. He envisioned a new kind of warfare, one that would turn America's own population centers into breeding grounds for disease. He called it Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. The plan was audacious in its simplicity and chilling in its scope. Ishii proposed using long-range submarines, the I-400 class, which were essentially underwater aircraft carriers. Each submarine could carry 3 seaplanes. The mission was to launch these planes under the cover of darkness off the coast of Southern California. Instead of bombs, these planes would be loaded with ceramic containers filled with fleas, but not just any fleas. These were fleas infected with Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes the bubonic plague, the Black Death. The target was San Diego. The planes were to fly over the city and release their grotesque payload. The idea was that the plague-infested fleas would bite humans and animals, starting an epidemic that would spread like wildfire. Ishii calculated that the resulting plague outbreak would cause tens of thousands of casualties, create widespread panic, and cripple the American war effort on the West Coast, which was a vital staging area for the Pacific campaign. He believed it would sow so much terror and chaos that it would force the U.S. to the negotiating table. Just think about that for a moment. An invisible enemy, silently spreading through a major city, turning it into a scene from the Middle Ages. The psychological impact would have been just as devastating as the physical one. It was biological warfare on a scale never before attempted against a civilian population. The plan was fully developed. The submarines were ready. The pilots were trained. The date was set, September 22nd, 1945. Ishii and his team were confident. They had conducted smaller-scale biological attacks in China with horrific success, so they knew their methods worked. To them, this was the logical next step. So, why have most of us never heard of this? Why didn't San Diego become a modern plague pit? Because of one simple, critical factor. Timing. On August 15th, 1945, just 5 weeks before Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night was scheduled to launch, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war was over. The submarines were recalled. The plague-filled canisters were, presumably, disposed of. The world, and specifically the citizens of Southern California, had been spared from a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions, and they never even knew it. The story doesn't quite end there, though. In the aftermath of the war, what happened to Shirishie and the leaders of Unit 731? You might expect they would face justice at the Tokyo War Crimes trials for their horrific activities, but they didn't. In a controversial and morally ambiguous move, American authorities granted Ishii and his top researchers immunity from prosecution. In exchange for what? Their data. All of it. The United States government wanted the detailed research from Unit 731's years of human experimentation. They saw the data as invaluable for their own biological warfare defense programs, believing that understanding how these weapons worked was the best way to defend against them. And so, the man who planned to unleash the Black Death on American soil walked free. He never faced a courtroom for his crimes. It's a chilling postscript to an already terrifying story, a stark reminder of the complex and often murky moral compromises made in the shadow of war. The story of Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night serves as a powerful reminder of how close we came to a different, much darker reality. It's a tale of scientific brilliance twisted for horrifying ends. A grand, evil plan, foiled not by heroes or spies, but by the simple ticking of a clock. It shows that sometimes, the biggest disasters in history are the ones that never happened. It's a testament to how the course of events can turn on a dime, and how we are often blissfully unaware of the bullets we've dodged. What do you guys think? Is it right that Ishii was granted immunity in exchange for his research? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a really complex ethical question, and I'd love to hear your perspectives. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into a forgotten chapter of history. If you found this story as fascinating and unsettling as I did, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. It really helps us out. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.